Thank you so much. What I'll do is I'll ask one question and then I'll take questions from the audience as well. So this way this will be more interactive. I'll start with you, Dr. Bernard. From strategic communication lens, what are the biggest challenges pharma companies are facing today when adapting to digital engagement?
Adapting to digital engagement, the strategic challenges. Interesting. So when we work with global pharmaceutical clients, one of the things that we tend to hear all the time is that it's almost like a little bit of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. You've got the clinicians on one side doing clinical research, and on the other side, you've got the commercial guys who are interested in market share and selling product. There's a real tension there. Unfortunately, those guys have most of the money. So they drive most of the conversation. And they want to make sure that we engage for the purposes of their sales objectives. And I think the tension is, the strategic tension there is that you want to make sure that there is more balance in the conversation. And as clinicians, either working in pharma or as a frontline clinician, shift that balance to more digital engagement and more holistic engagement. Don't want to make the conversation about one-off sales transactions. So I think that's probably where strategically I think companies need to start thinking about doing a more holistic approach and starting the engagement way before the sales guys get involved. So way in earlier clinical trials and making sure that there's some funding available there to engage clinicians, because we tend to see that when clinicians are engaged earlier on in clinical trials, they will have something to say about it. And they are aware. So I think that's where probably the strategic opportunity lies.
Excuse me, I would request the audience to please listen carefully. Please be silent, please. Thank you.
So Dr. Bernard shared that the pharmaceuticals should engage clinicians, and that's not an easy thing to do in Pakistan's perspective, and I'm sure the pharmaceutical industry would agree with me. So now we'll take question, anyone question from the audience who would want to ask? Yes, please.
First of all, thank you. Great presentation. My question was around HC Peers, the app. X Twitter is pretty much outdated. So I know people, especially in my field, I'm a psychologist, also work with a lot of healthcare professionals. No one really uses Twitter and X anymore because of the political kind of narratives on there, and people are kind of moving away from it because, you know, it's very messy. So this is in the UK and also UAE. So more people are now going to LinkedIn to, you know, talk about what's going on and what they're up to, like similar to what we're doing right now, using Instagram and also TikTok. So are there any features that can be implemented with those platforms as opposed to X? Because again, like I said, I used to love X when it was Twitter, but I would never go near it now.
Do you want me to take that?
So thoughts?
Yeah, sure. No, it's a great question, actually. So as Ali shared, it's in beta trial. We have one verification link. The ambition is to roll it out amongst multiple platforms. I wanted to make an observation about the politicization of social platforms for political purposes. We've definitely seen a shift in that in the last sort of, say, 5 years. And I think that's something to be aware of. What we tend to see, though, is that healthcare professionals, I can only speak for the ones in the West, shall we say, are quite traditional, and they've established networks on social media, and they are very reluctant to change. So we see that actually what has endured is that a lot of the clinical conversation has been established for more than a decade on X, for example, and those clinical networks are enduring through this. So they're relatively stable. What we do see, though, is that when there is specific political tensions, that people have dual accounts. So they will say, for example, open a Blue Sky account, which is very similar to Twitter. It's actually really easy to migrate it across, and then they will say, I'm also on. And then they will say, I'm also on Instagram, I'm also on LinkedIn, I'm also on this, that, and the other. So, but the main conversation about medical education tends to be on X still, which is kind of interesting. Certainly in the West. There is a shift to this, and we see some early signs of that on Blue Sky. And I think there is more opportunity on LinkedIn. but LinkedIn is a very, very difficult social media platform for open conversations to be analyzed. So they're very protective about their networks, rightly so. But the point about sharing openly is that you want to share that knowledge and so on. So I think there's some challenges with all of the social media platforms. There's none that's perfect. There's also loads of closed networks that we have access to. So in short, the answer to the question around the app is we are launching it with Axe, and the ambition is to add further media
yes, and
platforms.
I'll add that I'll add my take as a product professional, because I have worked on this application and this is basically my work. So I hope that everyone knows what product management is essentially. So you as a product manager, you work with cross-functional teams, development teams. In my profession, I run daily sprints, weekly sprints, bi-weekly sprints with development teams, and we try to figure out how we can best create this platform or an application. In regards to your question, it is, yes, 100% valid. Not to disregard what Bernard said, that the conversations are still there, because healthcare professionals, especially in the West, yes, you would be surprised how traditional they are, and they are still, they're relevant and they are using X. But in terms of the political instability on X and people shifting out and migrating, as Bernard said, Blue Sky is the next best option. It's actually created by an ex-Twitter exec. And Blue Sky was, from a product perspective, we were trying to integrate Blue Sky from the start, but we want to, so I think businessmen here would understand better how you iterate products. So if you're starting a business for the first time, you will try to perfect the product and then launch it, right? If you're doing a business for the second or third time, you will launch first, and then you will learn from the users, and then you will iterate and then build on that product. So that's what we're trying to do, because we've done this for for however long. We want to launch first. We want to get users on it. And I'll give you a personal example. We had done the beta rollout, right? We had given this to healthcare professionals, and we identified a very, very key and critical user flow that we could not control. So that was a limitation from X, right? And we couldn't bypass that. But since we got the feedback from healthcare professionals saying, we don't really like this flow, we sat down and we said, okay, we'll change it. We don't know how, but we will change it, because our goal is to go through the user flow in terms of on the perspective of healthcare professionals, because they have to use it. So we will do the impossible, and as Bernard said, we will integrate Blue Sky. We're going to integrate other social media platforms as well, because again, the concept is HCP social learning. So if everyone is migrating, for example, out of X, there's no point of keeping only X. So wherever they will migrate, and because we're analytics expert, we will exactly know where they're migrating. I'll give you an example. We have, on our platform, we have about 900,000 HCP data. So I can go through 900,000 people individually, and I have their data who are healthcare professionals globally. So that's close to 1 million healthcare professionals. And internally, I'm going like this. I have so much data. But essentially what you need to do is, we will know if they're migrating, and whenever they're migrating, and if there's focus towards one application more than the other, obviously that is a priority for us, and we will invest in that, and that is the goal. With HCPers, we will launch first, learn from the feedback, iterate, build on other social media apps, integrate them onto HCPers, and then eventually, because our goal is to make this app so global and so large, that this becomes sort of a norm for you and sort of an entertainment for you, where you go on the application and you view your analytics, and then you learn from your analytics, and then you strategize your professional journey. And that's what I do, right? That's what everyone does in their professional journey. They learn from the trends that they have gone so far. So I have 5 years of experience in my professional journey. I sit down and I map that and I learn from that, and then I strategize on forward. So that's what we're going to do with HCPers. But to answer your question in simple terms, yes, people are migrating from X, but as Bernard said, it's still traditional. People are still on it. They're still talking about trends on it. Blue Sky is our next priority, and then we will further iterate with other social media applications as well.
Okay, I'll come back to this data and privacy thing. First, I'll go to Dr. Hussain. Dr. Hussain, you have worked in pharmaceutical for over 25 years. You've been the head of marketing. Now, 25 years back, giving your journey, there was no digital marketing concept. Now, 25 years and now digital marketing concept. How do you see the era changing, and how do you see this era being better than the previous one?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bernard and Mr. Ali. It was a very wonderful presentation, and the idea is superb. The idea is superb. Creation co. And creating the things, I would say rearranging the things differently. So the first thing is that mindset is there. Marketeers always think and see the future. They build the futures. They don't see what is happening now, they see what could be happen in the future. Actually, this basically, they brought an idea, and this woman share one of the best idea for the product line extension or a new product. If I could be a person, if I could be another company, I would cash this idea and I would launch another product. Actually, at this time, if we are not thinking on this idea, we can think in the future. So actually, the people sitting here and the people who are like experienced, you inform me that people are from Bayer, and one gentleman is, I guess, head of marketing of Bayer, and there are a lot of students and a lot of pharma people. Actually, they should be creative people. They should be innovative. And one thing which I have learned from a professor of INSEAD, Professor Loic, he said, you should follow the uncommon sense. Before we were talking about creativity and innovation, new thing, नई चीज़ होनी चाहिए, कोई जिद्दत लानी चाहिए, कोई नया सोच होनी चाहिए. Now we talk about uncommon sense. And what is uncommon sense? There is one example. Like when we talk about banking, way back 20 years back, जब हमें किसी से पता चलता था कि ये बंदा बैंक में जॉब करता है, हम क्या सोचते थे? ओ, ये हराम कमा रहा है. People were thinking कि ये बैंकिंग जो है ना वो हराम है. Banking is not like an Islamic way. And then what happened? Mizan Bank, the premier Islamic bank. You see, bank and Islam, they were apart. And now there is a bank which says Premier Islamic Banking, and Islamic banking has been launched. So what was the idea? You know, Mizan Bank ke piche kaun tha? There was one gentleman who was living abroad. He came to Pakistan and he launched Mizan Bank. He launched Mizan Bank here. So these women, these like beautiful students and like boys and girls, they are the future marketeers. They are the future e-health marketeers. So you have to think wisely, you have to think creatively, and what new ideas you can bring. So the digital health, before we were bringing new ideas, that was like 20 years back, we were having different ideas. This year, like when we are talking about 2025, you have to bring ideas which can be effectively utilized, and we can bring products for 2030, and when we are talking in 2030, we will be launching ideas for 2040. So you have to see the future, you have to create the future. This is basically a marketer.
Thank you, Dr. Hussain. I had this question for Daniel, but since you guys come from the same company, and so how do you see you've spoken, Daniel speaks a lot about digital empathy, right? So how can pharma apply that concept, the digital empathy concept? How can pharma apply so that they can better communicate with their consumers, with the HCPs?
By listening to Dr. Bernard.
Well, no, I mean, I think we touched upon this in the presentation in some ways, but it's questioning why you're doing what you're doing. It's a bit like, you know, understanding the future, I guess, and what it is you're trying to achieve, right? So I think if you genuinely want to engage healthcare professionals, you'll find that most healthcare professionals be open for it. I think if you have the right reasons for this, and you do this with empathy, as in not a zero-sum as in you work with us, so we tell you what to do. But actually, we value you as an individual and the contributions that you bring to this conversation, wherever we are in the stage of either launch or post-launch or pre-launch. I think that is going to be really important. But actually, crucially, it's understanding what healthcare professionals really care about and coming alongside them. So understanding the digital conversation around particular therapy areas will uncover things that are on people's minds. And as I said with the example of the cancer treatment example that I gave in the UK, you then tend to find that if you come alongside those in those conversations to understand, actually they're not talking about efficacy of treatment, they're talking about empathy. They're talking about patient outcomes in a different way than we were anticipating. So actually, if we want to get best traction and show empathy, it's centering around what's the best outcome for the patient. Most clinicians will see that as a form of empathy, and as long as you bring it as a genuine form of empathy, then I think that's probably a good focus to have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the audience? Oh, hold on, Ali. Hold on. Better.
Hello everyone, this is Rahat Lecturer, Faculty of Pharmacy, Salim, Habib University. Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. Actually, I want to ask, how can we address the question of professional marketing? Like you see, we are involving healthcare professionals. Most of the healthcare professionals are not in favor of brand marketing. Like when we are talking about the brand prescribing, obviously they prefer the generic prescribing and not prefer brand. So how can we address this gap? As a marketeer, obviously we will want that our brand is marketed, and from the healthcare professional point of view, they prefer generic prescribing. So how can we bridge this gap and make our marketing a professional one?
Who will take the question?
Probably Dr. Hussain is better suited to answer this.
So, like when we talk about pharmaceutical companies, okay, they always prefer to go for the brand marketing. But when we talk about the regulator perspective, Pakistan mein itna common nahi hai, but when we talk about the global perspective, so they prescribe the generics. And basically when we are talking about the generics, actually the doctor is looking for a treatment which is basically fulfilled by certain chemical or certain generic. Actually he is not looking after, like when we are talking about, like when we are thirsty, what we have to do, what we are looking at, we have to drink something. Either we have to drink water, or okay, if I am like feeling thirsty and I have to go for water, what water brand I will go for? I will take a glass of water. So what is in my mind? Actually what is in my mind is I have to go for Aquafina, or I have to go for Nestle, or I have to go for Way or Pacola or something like that. So actually this is in my mind. So the marketeer, pharmaceutical marketeer, what they do, they work on the mind of the customers. This is called positioning, okay? They work on the positioning. So when they are going to the healthcare professionals, basically, you know, when they are going to the healthcare professionals, how they are going? They go through the form of medical reps, medical representatives. So they train their medical representatives in such a way that these medical representatives actually represent their companies and they represent their brands. So when we are talking about customers, he was talking about digital empathy. So doctor is himself or herself is a human being, and human being has emotions, human beings has mindset, human beings has like something happening in the mind. Maybe if I am a human being, I am a medical doctor as well. I have done MBBS, I am a medical doctor as well. If I am, just for an example, if I am sitting in my clinic and if in the evening I wish to eat something, maybe I want to eat bun kebab, maybe I want to eat biryani or samosa. So this is emotions of a medical doctor. So the pharma company also work on the emotions as well. This is digital empathy when he was talking about. So they train their medical reps, they give their all informations, They create the values in the mind of the customer. They position their brand in such a way that whenever a doctor is thinking of a generic like paracetamol, he would go to prescribe either Panadol or Febral. Because when he would like to prescribe paracetamol, he would be thinking that this is the actual requirement of the patient. So this is, we cannot answer in just a one question, but it's a very important and a detailed thing that consumer behavior applies here, positioning applies here, segmentation applies here, the training applies here, and the marketing strategies applies here.
Thank you, Dr. Hussain. Dr. Hasan, as you're building the from the academia side for the MBA course, how is digital health or digital education now part of academia, which would help the students to actually learn about digital side of the marketing?
Thank you so much for this discussion. It has been really insightful. Closing it down and summing it up, Ali and Bernard has already summed it up. It's hyper-personal these days. We have to understand either from any background, like either you are from healthcare or from FMCGs or various different backgrounds. It's really, we really need to understand how the world has transformed and where we are today. In the digital era, everyone is interconnected with each other at every pain point and at every level of the customer journey. So once we understand the whole journey and interconnect all the dots together, then we will be able to make sense of who we are. The other lady asked about the stakeholders, like who ran the company as individual, the doctor as individual, the hospital as individual, and the patient as individual. So we really need to understand all these people together and then build an ecosystem like Ali and Bernard has been doing with their HCAP platform. So it's a platform. We as a marketer or we as a health professional really need to keep human-centric approach even today. It has been there from 100 years. People say it, people transform it. Various marketing professionals or scholars have defined it, as in the presentation mentioned. So, but the only thing that will remain common in the uncommon sense is the human. Do not manipulate. Think of human above everything. Either it's for every stakeholder, like a company, as a pharmaceutical company, as a hospital, or as a patient, or as a doctor. We have to keep human interest at the top of it. Once we do that, everyone can achieve their own personal gains and benefits out of it, keeping a well-placed human approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Last question from Ali and Bernard, from the perspective of your application that you've built and so much communication and data and coming in. How are you guys managing the data privacy? What's the balance between personalization and data privacy? Because you have access to a lot of data with this application.
Yeah, it's a good question and something that we get asked a lot. These are all publicly available conversations. So we are compliant with all GDPR regulations. And actually, the whole reason why doctors put this in the public domain and that these are not private conversations is because they are using it for medical education purposes often. So there is no point in putting that behind in a private conversation because the whole point of that is dissemination. You know your clinical best practice, you want to share that with people, and you do not want to restrict that, so it's in the public domain. So the only thing that we do is actually listen out for those kind of conversations in the public domain. They're already there. And we summarize that in a very complex using advanced algorithms, but still, it's all compliant. So I think there is definitely the right. There are good reasons for asking the question, and there's also a good answer to it. So I think the only other thing I would say about that is that these are not confidential conversations either, right? They are already open in the public conversation.
Thank you, Dr. Bernard. Yes, please.
I wanted to add on this as well. So the European Union is a very regulated market, right? UK and the EU. So it's unlikely that you create a solution that is not compliant. So we follow UK GDPR. So GDPR has two branches. One is EU GDPR and one is UK GDPR because of Brexit. And there are multiple compliances as well. Obviously, there's no certification per se, but we do follow the guidelines of GDPR and we've ensured it. I think the value of HCPers or the value that we bring to the industry, I wanted to highlight that value. So again, HCPers is a tool that we have created, but the point is not HCPers, the point is HCP social learnings. So the concept is important. HCPers is a tool that we've created and it's a really good tool, no doubt. We get data out of X, right? So again, it's public data. It's already there, it's already accessible. Anyone can create a tool and connect an X API and obviously pump in a lot of money and create an application. The value that we bring is that we have 900,000 verified healthcare professionals data, the data of 900,000 verified healthcare professionals. And then we feed the data that we get out of X, and then we filter it through the database that we have. And that is what creates the distinction from any normal data that you would get out of a normal API. And HCP filtered data, which shows you the number of HCPs that liked your post, or the number of HCPs that connected, on your X account, or the number of HCPs that are in a particular location. So I think that filtration is what's important, and that's the value that we bring. And in terms of the verified healthcare professionals, yes, we do again follow GDPR compliancy, and we have consistently followed those guidelines. And actually, I've had to go through the technology a number of times because obviously that's my responsibility. So I have to make sure that there's no data leakage, or we have proper standards of procedures and SOPs defined if certain these leakages happen. But in terms of Twitter and HCPers, that data is already public. We're just taking the API and connecting it through. But again, the value is filtering it through the close to 1 million verified healthcare professionals that are there in our database.
Thank you, Ali. I would like Dr. Hussain to please close the session, give your insights, and so we can close the session.
Thank you, Dr. Hooria, and thank you, Dr. Bernard and Mr. Ali. It was a very wonderful presentation, and the ideas we discussed and the question answers, it was like worth listening to the audience and worth listening to you guys. And the main thing, the crux of this 1.5 hour session is that we have to be creative. Before, when we were talking about 20 years back, if we will ask the people, like there were like 5 creative people and there were like, I guess, 900 or more than 995 were ordinary people. But now, when we are talking about the younger generations, they are bringing different new ideas every time. And there are a lot of different ideas are coming. Entrepreneurship is like common. So startups are common. So you have to be creative, you have to be innovative, you have to be having observations. And the best thing for being creative is that, like, you have to listen to the HCP. When we are talking about HCP, they says there was one wonderful line which I got from Mr. Ali, that voice of HCP. Listen the voice of HCP. So when we are talking about the marketeers, they have to listen the voice of the customer, voice of the consumer, voice of the HCP. If you are a teacher, you have to listen to the voice of the student. What is the voice, what they are saying, what they want, what are their problems, what are their suggestions, what are their observations. So listen to that voice, make it a new, bring new creative idea. And if you are a marketer, you can launch a product that resolve or that solves the problem. And when they were talking, that creates value and profitably. So you can be a businessman, you can be an entrepreneur if you listen to the voice of your consumer, of your customer, and solve their problem. So if you are solving their problem, you are a good marketer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hussain. With this, we'll wrap up this session. Thank you so much for being a great audience. I would request you to please come on stage, stand up so that we can have the shields.